from the mixed metal arts community. I am the woke centrist, and this is Mixed Metal Arts Chat. Today, we have Polish Christian Bale joining us. Say hi,
better known
Polish
as
Christian Bale.
better known as Polish Dick Cheney.
Is Polish Dick Cheney, Polish Batman, Polish psychopath, um,
Exactly. I
Polish
know this stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Polish Japanese internment camp kid, and among other things.
Exactly. Yeah.
We will have, I know for sure Andrew's going to join us later. He's probably
Sure.
on marijuana time, so that doesn't exactly
Those
align
Canadians, Canadians. Ugh. Ugh.
with reality. But we're just going to talk about, some of the current events that have been going on this past week. Um, I guess
Sure.
the biggest one of the week that we've been bombarded with would be the pipe bomb guy.
Sure.
And this guy's crazy, right?
But was it what is a guy? Was it a guy or any kind of organization stuff?
Okay, so it's a crazy lone nut. I do not buy that there's like some big conspiracy that okay, there's a lot of conspiracies floating around.
Mm-hmm.
If you're gonna go from the Alex Jones point of view, it's a false flag created to get more people to vote for Democrats.
Alex Jones. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I don't believe that. There's no evidence of it. The other narrative is that um, which is the most likely is just he's a lone nut job. And the guy is completely nuts if you take a look at his history. Did you take a look at this guy at all?
And not exactly, not exactly. I just heard that there is some sort of a thing that people that are on the left from the center just got those bombs, and that's everything I just heard.
Okay, so yeah, the name of the guy is Caesar Sayak. He is a former male stripper and bodybuilder.
Jesus fucking Christ! It already sounds like Alex Jones invented this story
Well, he was
already.
a former male stripper though, and a
Oh
former
God.
bodybuilder. He was arrested on charges of possessing steroids. So he was. There are some pictures of him, like when he was younger, and he was definitely like a stripper, bodybuilder type person.
Sure. Yeah.
And you have to think too about who are the patrons of male strippers. You're either attending bachelor parties or being hired by like gay dudes. That's the only thing I can really think about if you're a male stripper. If you work at a male strip club, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of gay men in there. But anyway, I think
Mm-hmm.
he's like 56 years old now. There's a widely circulated mugshot on the internet. If if you take a look at the picture, it's obvious that he paints the top of his head because he's experiencing some massive hair loss and is likely a rather vain individual. But um, they found his van. It was peppered with like Trump propaganda. Um, I think he had some CNN stickers that said CNN sucks. A bunch of memes posted on his windows of his van. Um,
Yeah.
and there's just like a lot of dumb people. I'm not gonna say that they're dumb. I'm just gonna say that they lack critical thinking skills because one of the narratives going on is
Mm-hmm.
like, oh man, those stickers look so new. you can't put a sticker on a car and it won't last more than a few days. Of course, this is flat out ridiculous. Um, I've put stickers on my car that have lasted for years. Um, it's ridiculous to say that this is like a made up van at the last moment that they put these stickers on this guy's car to create some type of scapegoat or patsy. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous reasoning um, to try to paint him as something that he's not.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
One of the one of the funny things as well as I went around is what I like to do is I like to go hunt for news stories on very ideologically based sites,
Yeah.
and
Good
I
one. Like that. Yeah. Okay.
and then I check the comment sections to see what people are saying, because typically if you check the comment section, you can gauge the type of audience that um, that particular publication caters to.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and checked a lot of far right um, publications. One of the ones I checked was Gateway Pundit, which is pretty far right. And in the comment section, there was a lot of argument about basically them saying that this guy was not a Republican and he was not white. So they're trying to argue that this guy isn't part of their tribe because of those two things, but that it really shouldn't make any difference because uh, because he's a Republican and he's crazy and has some type of mixed heritage. Your race does not
Mm-hmm.
denote your ideology. Like you could be whatever race, like a black person could be Republican. Doesn't matter if he's not white or doesn't appear white. But there's just a lot of chatter about it, a lot of people in denial about what he is. A lot of people using him as basically on the left, he's used as an example of crazy Republicans, but he's just one crazy guy in
Okay. I
general.
agree. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
And
then there's
on
the
the left
other
then.
issue. Yeah, there's the
Okay.
other issue as well. He targeted a bunch of people, like so many. It's kind of crazy about how it happened, but thankfully nobody got hurt. That's the great part. But there's been this
Indeed.
conversation in the United States now that this event has occurred. Is the conversation right now stems on, does the president have a responsibility to act in a way that doesn't encourage these types of attacks?
Okay, when when you talk about president, you talk about this guy that recently called this Stormy Daniels girl horseface.
Well, he
That,
says a lot of shit. That's not the
yeah,
only thing, that he
little things,
says.
little things, little things, little things. I mean,
Well, there are a couple. There's
horseface is my
small things,
favorite.
and there are a little bit bigger things. Like for instance, during the campaign trail, there was an incident where there was a fight amongst. He was holding a rally. I don't know which city, but
Mm-hmm.
there was someone being disruptive in the audience, and he
Okay.
got kicked out by security. And on his way from leaving the venue, one of the people attending the rally got up and punched the guy in the face as they were
Okay.
escorting him out. Uh, I don't know if it was at this rally, but Trump said specifically that if anybody punched or got in a fight with like the protesters, he would pay their legal fees.
Aww, such a human being. Ha ha ha.
Well, what I'm saying is, you think that type of behavior, or at least
Hmm.
those words, promote or at least encourage people like this to do the things that they do?
Agreed, agreed. I mean, uh, this is everything we just talk about right now is about climate, right? And
Well, yeah,
my
so
question is,
pretty
do, do you
charged climate.
do you feel that this kind of things were happening 10 years ago or 20 years ago?
Um,
This is this
I
is my
can
question, yeah?
say that
Mm-hmm.
they have, like, if we're talking about just kind of the history of domestic terrorism, I know one of the biggest events that have occurred in the United States was
Mm-hmm.
the Oklahoma City bombing, if you
Yeah,
remember that.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, that was a homegrown domestic terrorist. But we didn't have
Mm-hmm.
anybody in leadership positions creating a target, if you know what I mean. So all the people
Okay.
that the guy went after were people that Trump specifically criticized quite harshly. And when we say criticize, I'm
Mm-hmm.
basically saying talked shit and ad hominem them in
Mm-hmm.
some form or fashion.
Okay, okay. Good one. Yeah. I'm not okay. I'm not talking about how the reality was figuring out itself. How was um what was the reality we were dealing with 20 years ago? But what was the narrative? That's what I'm interested in. Because you know what? When you think about Obama was a guy that I am not a big fan of. And he came with this idea, okay, yes, we can. And in the end, he became some sort of a bureaucrat. Trump came with the idea, fuck them, they fucked up, they fucked us up, and he came with a negative narrative for the first time since Second World War, maybe. I have no idea. Stuff like that. And I'm asking that, I'm saying that because I have this feeling that all of the stuff that we're talking about, all of those things are just embedded in our, talking about politics more than, society. Or maybe our talking about society is basically politics driven, stuff like that. I have
Yep.
this type of feeling. Yeah.
Hmm. That's a good. That's a good. There's a lot of arguments. Some
Mm-hmm.
people say that there's so many different factors that contribute to the shifting and evolution of society.
Yeah, I mean, things
So
change. Things change, and we deal with different reality from what was happening 10 years ago, right? Because being
yeah,
honest, I mean, 10 years ago there was no mixed martial artistry. 10 years ago, people were just watching TV and not actively talking about things as much as we do right now. I'm not saying that there were no places where you could do stuff like that, but not as
well,
actively, not as obviously, and from day to day, right, like right now, I think.
there's a lot of factors that go into it. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
not just politics, it's the entire environment. shapes culture. So that's politics, economics, technology, all of those things together
Mm-hmm.
do greatly impact how we move culture forward. And the problem with discourse is that if you think about it,
Mm-hmm.
before the internet, there was always a face and a reputation to words that were published, opinions that were put out into the ether.
Good one.
We're
Yeah.
kind of in a where we're allowed to say things without repercussions. We're allowed to be extremely unfiltered.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is not something that people, or at least human psyche, is used to. We're used to having to check our own reputations with the words that we put out in the world. And since now many people can hide behind a shield of anonymity, people will say
Exactly.
the most fucked up things without any social repercussion whatsoever.
Yeah. You put it ridiculously wonderfully in words, because it's like mm, yeah, that we had this mhm. We didn't have this burden of whatever you say is visible. Uh, but on the other hand, we understood that everything we just say is just more valuable. I think
Yeah,
so.
it's valuable, but the other thing is
Important,
too is
important, yeah, stuff like that. Hmm.
before the internet there were a gateway of there was a filter on public opinion. So only specific voices were largely distributed to a massive amount of people.
Exactly.
We yeah, so when that is the case, and your face is known, and you have to stake your reputation on what you say, then people tend to be more careful with what they say.
Exactly.
Now we're in a world where nothing, as long as your real identity is not linked to your words, you could say whatever the hell you want and not risk any type of repercussion. And I think right now we're just seeing that. We're right now seeing the consequence of not having a reputation attached to some vile remark. So we're talking about, just anonymous people in comment sections. Um, Typically, if those people's faces were known
Hmm.
and they had a reputation to upkeep, they likely wouldn't spread certain things online or say certain things online because
Absolutely agree.
their
Yeah.
reputation would hang
And
on those words.
and next step from the stuff you're talking about is just bombing, right? Because there is some sort of connection between one and second thing. Unfortunately, I think so.
Yeah, those, I don't know, those people who tend to do those types of acts, I think are very much far removed from reality and
Exactly. Yeah.
are likely psychopaths, to be honest. They have no
Obviously.
remorse the end like ending innocent people's lives, obviously.
Yeah, indeed.
Um, and that's not just the United States. I know. Wasn't there one in Norway, like a guy that killed 70 people?
Yeah, indeed. Indeed, indeed. I mean, of course.
And, and I think post-internet age is there's looks like there's a correlation between post-internet age and the amount of mass shootings there are. Um, I don't know exactly
Okay,
what
but
type of social pressures that causes, but it
mhm.
does appear that the internet has um, pretty much accelerated these types of lone wolf attacks on innocent people.
Okay, I don't know the statistics, um, but the very important thing is that we just see much more stuff that we has that we had ever seen in our lives, in 90s and stuff like that. I mean, we say that, Islam is just so ridiculous and it's just so vile and things, but let's be honest, what was happening between, Northern Ireland, people from Northern Ireland, all those Irish Catholics and Protestants was just ridiculous. In 70s, people were just killing each other. What was happening in Bosnia in 90s. So the violence it has always been there, but we didn't have this type of tools that we have right now to see that. It's also very important, I think.
Yeah, I think that's also true quite a bit, but also there's still this even though we have access to so much information and we can pretty much debunk stereotypes and other talking points quite easily, people still fall into these tribal traps of portraying an outside group as the worst possible interpretation that you can. Like,
Sure thing,
for
yeah.
instance, we have people here in the United States who view Arabs and Muslims as, people only wearing burqas and beating their women and throwing gays off of rooftops. But you go to like one of these Muslim countries and you ask them what is the average American like, and they'll tell you, oh, it's a redneck flying the Confederate flag,
Yeah, sure. The-
shooting guns in the streets
Sure,
and
but
super racist people. So you see how
mhm.
how easy it is to stereotype some people off of these
Yeah,
smaller, very radical and loud spoken groups.
exactly. I just love what you say right now, but let's be honest. I mean, the difference between the first guys and the second guys is that people from Arab countries come to States. People from States don't go to Arab countries.
You
Little
would
thing.
think that, but
Mm-hmm.
the guys that go, like I personally know some people who have went to Arab countries to work, and
Seriously?
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I do,
okay,
because there's a
sure.
lot of perks. One, if if you work over there, you don't have to pay taxes.
Little
It's
things,
tax
little
free.
things, little things, little things. Okay.
Um, it it's okay. So I know what you mean. It's more likely that someone is going to immigrate to the U.S., but it's not always the case because there are some very rich countries in the Middle East, like UAE and some of those richer countries. But some people from America do go to the Middle East for business
Indeed, yeah.
opportunities. It's not a
Exactly. Yeah.
lot, but
Yeah, but they go there because they know how to code stuff, I think, or they are. Uh,
no, the guy I knew doesn't know technology at all.
Jesus freaking Christ. Yeah, I know nothing. I know nothing just now. I am the just now. I have no fucking idea about stuff. Yeah, but let's be honest. I always okay. I do think that there is a difference between, American culture and Muslim culture. and I think that I would like to be in your American culture more than the Muslim one, and those differences should be acknowledged, and we should talk about that. This is what I really think is very important for me.
Well,
And
yeah, that's certainly a personal preference, but I'm not saying that everybody thinks that way. Because if you think about
sure.
ISIS, for
Mm-hmm.
example,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the people who joined ISIS were from abroad, from Europe, from the United States, from Canada, and they went to the Middle East, and it was because they were drawn to ISIS,
Yeah, but
cultural or religious reasons.
okay, and I think that those people were wrong. And
Yeah, I'm not saying
I
they weren't. Yeah.
yeah, and okay, because this is when we talk okay, so when you talk about all of this wonderful stuff with Ed, uh, Sam's bulldog, he has this wonderful thing about being, objective about things, okay? And
I don't
my
think that's so wonderful, but go ahead.
okay, my problem is always that it doesn't work like that. I am a human being with some sort of possibility of thinking, that some stuff works, some stuff doesn't. And it depends on what is the particular place I was born in, stuff like that, and so on and so on, like Zizek would say. And I always, I always think that when we talk about cultures, we can never forget about politics. We should never forget about okay, I like stuff different from yours, and it's never objective. It's always I want to be in a place I am right now. I would like to be in a better place, 2 years from now on, and things like this. So when anybody talks about Islam and Middle East, I always say that what is closest to my chest is uh, all those white privileged guys that invented United States of America. Those Washingtons, those Hamiltons, guys like that. They had a certain idea um, how we should just behave between one another, and I love that. And I think that Islam will never go those places because it cannot
Well,
go
that
those
might be
places
true.
right
Like,
now. This is
I
me.
agree.
Hmm.
I certainly agree. But one of the things I believe in
Okay.
is that the environment, like the current culture in a particular place, is a product of evolution.
Absolutely.
And if you think about the failures of the Afghanistan war, it's been going on for what, 17 years?
Sure. Absolutely.
And one of the main failures is how do you instill American values into a place that was not evolved for American values?
You don't, and this is why people like. Okay, so there was this one episode of uh, Bill Maher's. I don't know how this his thing is called, but Bill Maher had Farid Zakaria and I don't remember his name. Sorry. I mean this historian Mitchum, this Mitchum historian, and Zakaria said a wonderful thing. I came from India into United States not because I want to bring India into United States. I came here because I believe that this is this is the way people should behave.
Hmm.
And it was invented by white privileged people in 17th century,
Yep.
and nothing will change that. Nothing will change that. Okay, we want to involve as much people as we can. uh, this Spider-Man movie, this recent one, when every kid was just colorful, it's wonderful, it's brilliant, but let's be honest, the system was invented by white privileged people, and this is why it works. United States of America works much better than any other country on this planet.
Canada
Well,
works pretty well too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think you can really say that without living here. You would think it works, but it has a lot of
You
problems.
create narrative around what is happening right now in bilateral situations. Americans create politics around this planet. Europeans are just doing things. You have Bernie Sanders that is just ridiculous, telling Americans that they can make the same situations that you have in Norway with with the socialist things. That is just ridiculous. Um, but being honest, you guys, you figure out a lot of things that nobody else did. Uh, and I'm
Yeah,
not
but
saying that.
there's also a bunch of stuff that we haven't figured out. Like,
Obviously, I'm not saying that this is the best place to live. I mean, it kind of is, but I'm not saying this is the best place on this planet. But I'm saying that talking about politics, talking about figuring out the system that makes the most sense, that is the closest to your understanding of how things should work, you are the closest to what it should be. I really believe
maybe
that.
not the closest of what it should be according to the environment that we're in.
Mhm.
But like I'm saying, you can't just place those values in any environment and they'll work.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Again, like I said, Zakaria said, I want to live in the United States of America, but it's because it is just closest to what I think works. He didn't say, I want to take, what you guys figure out and take it back to India. Because guys that live in India are not ready for all this stuff.
So you're saying
And
that America has done good things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Americans should spread their values everywhere.
and again, you come with wonderful words. Yes, agreed, 100%. Exactly what I'm saying.
Cool.
Exactly what I'm saying.
I think every culture has something of worth in it. It's,
Yeah. But you
it's
guys, you are the culture that is the most important culture in, like, 100 years. Last 100 years.
well, there's financial reasons for that, but I don't want to go
Mm-mm. And
back
cultural
into World War
reasons.
II.
Cultural reasons. You don't watch movies from Iran. Iranians watch American movies. Little things, nevertheless.
Well, yeah, that's also financially related. Like we have a lot of money to burn to make really spectacular movies, better
And
than
you
anybody else.
you also have Campbell, Joseph Campbell, and Indians don't have Joseph Campbell. Indians don't make, movies that Europeans would like to watch. Americans watch movies. Americans create movies that Europeans would like to watch. Little
Well, it depends on
things.
the person. Like I consume a lot of content that's not made in America.
Seriously? Uh,
I do. I watch a lot of anime. I read comic books that are made from
yeah.
Japan.
Okay, anime. Okay.
I watch Japanese live action TV shows on occasion.
Okay. Okay. You've got me here.
Like when you're steeped in
Agreed.
your own culture, you tend not to look elsewhere a bit to experience something new.
Okay. I can agree with anime. Okay. You're right. You're right there.
And there's a lot of very good video game studios that are in Europe. Many good game studios are in Europe.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you have Europe, you have France, you have those ugly French postmodernists like Derrida and Foucault and Little Flings and na. Obviously, but it
I
doesn't
don't know. I
change.
don't think Foucault was ugly looking. I think if he was straight, he would have been banging quite a bit.
Yeah, but it was gay. By the way, I mean, there was this little wonderful thing about Foucault that he wrote his first book in Poland because commies didn't have such a ridiculous policy about gay people. So he was able to, write all this stuff however he wanted to. Here in Poland, in Warsaw.
But I think you're not giving your own culture enough credit.
I do, I do, I do, I do. I mean,
What about CD Projekt?
I
You're
see.
not going to give them credit.
Never, never. They're fucking thieves. No, I mean, have you seen this? Uh, what's 2777 gameplay? Have you seen that?
No,
Oh, yeah.
I haven't. I haven't been keeping up with the latest and greatest as much
Okay.
as I'd like to.
Have you? Okay. So you're are you a fan of the Witcher stuff?
I have Witcher 2, but I have not gotten through that game.
Isn't that?
It's hard for me to put aside time to play very lengthy.
Hmm?
Oh, what happened? What happened?
He was talking about Witcher 2.
Yeah, I haven't played that. Have you played those games?
I mean, Witcher 3 is a masterpiece.
Oh, okay.
And you do that. Play this game. Yeah. It's a
No, I have.
masterpiece.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Oops, got cut out there. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. You're back. Cool.
What were you
There are
saying,
a lot of
Dustin?
good games that come from Poland.
Right.
I think you discount the importance of outside culture from the United States. Yeah, some people want to come and live here, but there's a lot of people that are here that aren't doing so hot as well.
Sure. But the most important thing is that The culture is never about, everybody just doing things. The culture is always about, there are some particular people that have those little, artifacts of being the coolest, and bringing everybody around with them wherever this project is. And it's a cool thing that we have this, we figured out this, I mean, those people figured out this little project of CD Project Red, that makes so much sense. But nevertheless, it's always about, how many people can go with that and go further, and figure out this coolness for themselves.
Maybe, but I don't know. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying I don't try to put too much stock in elevating my own culture above others. I just don't think that's a great mindset to have, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. Like
That makes sense.
there's good and bad things in every culture. I'm just not gonna play the game of weighing. I can certainly weigh the pros and cons of specific cultures according to my own cultural worldview, but I'm not going to play the game and saying this. These are the reasons why this culture is superior to this other culture.
Yeah.
I think there's always going to be
Well, yeah.
positives and negatives for everything.
Great one.
But
Yeah,
I'd
good one.
rather compare similarities than pit two cultures against each other because these things are better. And it's better to, I think, celebrate similarities rather than to celebrate differences in a
Yeah,
confrontational manner.
yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't even I don't even see, I think that everything about CD Projekt is that um, they figured out something that was invented somewhere else.
But doesn't The Witcher draw upon Polish mythology and culture?
No,
That's
no,
what
no,
where is it coming from?
no. Everything that works is just like, in the same way you could say that, I don't know, this, oh my goodness, Lord of the Ring is Celtic. It kinda is not. Lord of the Ring is just, it talks about stuff that every single human being on this planet understands.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and this is the good thing, because I mean, what is the coolest thing about Witcher is that it is just a little bit, bleaker. It is just a little bit, more um, more rough around the edges than other high fantasy games. It Okay, so it is some sort of a high fantasy without high. It's high fantasy with being a little bit depressed, but it
Like talking
works.
about Game of Thrones book 1 through 4.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very, very similar thing. Very similar thing, I suppose. Yeah, that Game of Thrones. This is a very Game of Thrones high fantasy stuff. Very similar stuff, and this is just a product, and people did that, and it worked, and I think it will work.
Well,
You know,
I have one question
from now
though.
on. Mm-hmm.
I know you mentioned Joseph Campbell.
You sound like you're using your woke powers, Dusty.
I am. I know you wanted to credit the United States with Joseph Campbell, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But isn't Joseph Campbell just pointing out the innate? Like what he's pointing out exists whether Joseph Campbell exists or not. Like
Yeah, I
Joseph
think so.
Campbell didn't actually invent anything. He is just pointing out our human nature and how we bring our nature out into storytelling.
Yeah, I think so.
Sure.
Would you agree with that?
Would I agree with one more time? Just put it in one sentence, please. Please. Because.
Well, to break it down, what I'm saying is that Joseph Campbell is only, he's not teaching us anything new, he's just showing us why we create stories the way we do, and that these stories are innate to human nature.
Exactly.
Like regardless if Joseph Campbell ever existed,
Yeah.
that the things that Joseph Campbell says are innate to people, are innate to human culture.
So, like, he kind of points out these story themes and mythological themes that many cultures have created.
Yeah, basically
Again.
he's giving us he's deconstructing these things, but the process of deconstructing itself is not a creative process.
That's true.
I
It's
think
an
so.
analytical process.
Yeah. But I think that there are two Campbells. There's one Campbell that is just analytical. One is just diagnostical. The second one is this guy that invented Star Wars. So you listen to those stories and you figure out what is the structure about all this stuff. And the second Joseph Campbell is this guy that just told um, Spielberg, I think, or this
George Lucas?
just Lucas, yeah. Sorry, yeah. He told Lucas how to say, okay, so how to describe a story using all of this structure. So there are two guys, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then George Lucas created the prequel trilogy.
Exactly. Yes.
So I don't think you can use him as such a shining example.
You got in there,
What
yeah.
about the new
Exactly.
ones? Have you guys seen all the newer ones?
I mean, Ryan Johnson is fucking awesome, and I will always say that this guy is not a villain. I like the
I
last
have
one.
mixed feelings. I got some mixed feelings. The first one, it was entertaining, enjoyable, but it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't particularly new. It was
It
an old
was,
story being updated
yeah.
to
Kinda useless, I would
It was
say.
it was kind of like a remake of A New Hope.
yeah. The
I
new
didn't
one,
care
the
so
new one
much. I didn't care.
is good and bad at the same time. The good part is that we now don't really know what to expect. They're really not relying on the old stories and the old characters anymore, because they're killing off Luke, they're killed off Han Solo. They're trying to start their own thing. However, there is a part of the second movie um, that just that pisses everybody off. Like the
Which
part that
part?
okay, so they go on this very long side quest with
Yeah.
Finn and Rose, and that side quest actually it makes their situation worse than better. It doesn't actually do anything
Yeah,
positive for them.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So it was like a giant waste of effort, and when you're trying to invest the audience into something, showing the colossal failure of these characters and how they actually made the situation worse makes you not like them that much.
Yeah. Yeah. I like I, it's interesting how people kind of like have polarizing views about that newest one. I
Mm-hmm.
I like that newest one more than the one before it, I would say. And I understand
Yeah.
why some
Mm-hmm.
people don't like it, and I understand why some people do like it because of what they did, because like you were saying, Dusty, they broke down they kind of like deconstructed some of the old story themes and old characters and were trying to break it down. But then I and I think some people are pissed off that they did that, and I guess that's understandable. I kind of like the newer look at it and kind of analyzing the dualistic good versus evil narrative and saying it's like it's destined to be this endless power struggle. But I don't know, like I don't know about how they ended it, because I see a lot of interesting opinions from people that disagree with each other about the ending. And I think out of the newer ones, I haven't seen that Solo one yet, but I like Rogue One. I think that literally is actually my favorite Star Wars movie, because I think like you and I were talking about on that video game chat a long time ago, Dusty. They're like underdog characters who don't have superpowers in a universe where there are Jedi and people like that, and then everyone dies at the end.
Yeah, I would say that Rogue One was probably my favorite of the new ones. And it's simply just because it's not extremely steeped in the old lore, with Jedi and this. It's a completely different story that's being told that doesn't follow the same tropes as the other stories that typically revolve around Jedi, which I did enjoy. Um, Solo is not bad. It didn't do great at the box office. I think that's just due to Star Wars fatigue.
Yeah.
But it's actually like a entertaining and decent movie. I actually liked it.
Did you like
And
it? How much did you like it in comparison to Rogue One?
I still like Rogue One better because Rogue One is just super dark.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like it
that's why
when
I
they
like it.
they take it dark and it's not like super happy-go-lucky
Yeah.
Jedi adventures. I like when they make it a little bit more dark, a little bit more morally ambiguous. Like in Rogue One, one of the dudes was like an assassin, and he was like torturing people, and he was supposed to be one of the good guys. They're all kind of
Yeah.
covert operatives, and it shows you like the rebels will do not so not so moral things to accomplish objectives.
Yeah.
And I liked that they kind of played with this gray moral space. I thought that was interesting.
Me too.
And actually, Solo does that a little bit, but okay. Solo's entertaining. I think the best like the best actor in Solo is probably Jordan. Oh no, 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 that's not his name. Childish Gambino. I don't know what his real name is. I kind of forgot, but he
Oh,
actually does.
Glover?
Yeah, he does a really good Lando Calrissian impression.
Yeah.
Like he actually sounds like him, which is pretty weird. He doesn't look like him, but he sounds like him. Like
It
you
seems
could
like
tell
that
that he,
actor might have been a fan of Lando, I think.
well, you could tell that he definitely worked on his dialogue because he tries to use like the same speech patterns and very much mimics the way that Lando Calrissian speaks. So he did his homework and he did a really good job. Um, but yeah, Solo's good. It's just kind of a side story, smuggler adventure. It's not really trying to explain like obscure lore of the Star Wars universe, but it's entertaining. I didn't find it a bad movie at all. I actually
Did you
enjoyed it.
find that it explained the backstory of Han Solo pretty well?
Well, it basically explains what the Kessel Run is.
Oh,
It's
okay.
half the movie is pretty much that. Kind of shows you how he's kind of this roguish, scrappy character, and his he's basically a rogue. He likes to go around, do jobs for not so moral people, and sometimes you could see where that spark of morality comes in. He's a rogue, but he's good at heart. Like he's not. He pretty much will take the good side when it's well argued to him. But yeah, it's an interesting movie. I'd say check it out. It's not bad. You'll you won't hate it. I know it's not
Hmm.
what people would expect. You know, you can't. It's hard to get somebody to play such an iconic role. But
Yeah,
I think he does a pretty decent job with it. I think.
that's good.
But
That's
yeah, the Last Jedi. I have mixed feelings. I like that they're trying to start something new, but I don't think it was a good idea to do that by making us hate some of the main characters who are supposed to
yeah.
be the good guys. Like
The that
that
part
movie
that
makes you dislike Poe Dameron, who's supposed to be like this badass pilot. It makes you
yeah,
dislike Finn because he went out and did all this shit and it made it worse. It's just I don't know. I don't think that's a good way to. Because I know the movie was supposed to be the point in which they try to divorce the new Star Wars from the old Star Wars. But I don't think they did it in such a great way by making you not like some of the characters that are supposed to be well liked.
yeah. You know,
Hmm.
I almost think they did. Um, the way they executed it was so that there could be so that what happens kind of has ambiguous meaning, which might be why it's so people's opinions seem to be kind of polarizing about whether they liked that aspect of it or not. The trying to divorce the new series from the old series, but that it was kind of executed in that way. I don't know. I don't know if it was that deliberate or not, though. Too, because it could have been just like mistakes that the filmmakers made and they could have executed it better.
Yeah, I agree. But the funny thing is they still kind of followed the trilogy format. If you think about the original trilogy, Empire Strikes Back had a very sad and depressing ending. Um, in both of those movies, what Luke gets his hand cut off,
Little
Solo gets put in
things.
a Solo gets put in a car. So it's basically at the end of the movie, you're like, oh, the good guys lost. But when they did lose, you didn't hate them or think they made a mistake in their judgment. They just
Yeah,
weren't good
Yeah.
enough.
yeah.
In the Last Jedi, you're like, Jesus Christ, Poe Dameron, you're a retard for you're
Let's
putting
be
all these
honest.
people's
Let's
lives
be
on the
honest.
line, and then
Everybody understands that if Brian Callen was Poe Dameron, everything would be just so fucking awesome. But it's not.
yeah, true.
Little things, little things, little things.
The Emperor would
Yeah,
fix
and
everything.
they get sent on
Exactly.
wild goose hunts and I don't know. I know they're kind of following the formula as far as the movie is supposed to be a downer in the end, but at least in Empire Strikes Back, you didn't dislike any of the main protagonists after it.
Yeah. I like this understanding. Somebody said that, I don't even remember who it was, that Star Wars just doesn't work anymore. So you just cannot create any more stories around it. And
I think you can. The thing is,
I
the
think you
problem.
cannot. I think you cannot. I think you cannot. I think.
I'll say this is why I think you can. I think you
Okay.
can. It's just that you cannot base it off of the Luke, Leia, and Solo timeline. Like, if you took it back maybe into the old Republic, you could start fresh and new, and there's a lot of different things you could play with and new concepts.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think the Luke, Leia, and Solo timeline is kind of played out.
Did you guys play that Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic RPG game?
No.
Yes,
I didn't.
excellent,
I
excellent
loved that
game.
game. I loved that game. I did what I do when I play RPGs, which is beat it as a good guy and as a bad guy, and then as kind of a morally ambiguous guy.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that game is excellent, and I'd love to see the movie franchise move into that timeline.
That would be awesome.
Because there's kind of like this giant extended universe that they've decanonized, unfortunately, but it would have been wonderful if they went back and tried to divorce from the Luke, Leia, and Han story. It's like they could be so much more creative. They can be more free to do more interesting things that aren't locked to that story. So I'd love to see them branch out in that way.
Yeah, they could easily go way back into
Cool.
the Old Republic and have a lot of really great material.
Yeah, and the funny thing about the old Republic, it's like they're still flying around in spaceships and using lightsabers. It's not like they're villagers on a planet.
And there are more Jedi.
Yeah, there's more Jedi. There's a bunch of Sith.
Yeah.
You know, there's it's like a Jedi isn't a super uncommon thing. So I just think that they could branch out more in that respect. But it seems like they're stuck in just the Luke Leia timeline, which is why I liked Rogue One, because it had nothing to do, except for, Leia at the end where they deliver the information. It really has not a whole lot to do with any of the main Star Wars characters.
Yeah. It's like, this is how Star Wars Episode 4 was able to happen.
Yeah. So I thought that's why I like Rogue One. It seemed really new, really fresh, and they broke out of that formula.
Yeah, that's why
having to rely on the main characters that everyone is expecting to see a story out of.
Yeah.
Agree. Yeah.
You think they could do? You think there's going to be a third one where they try to continue this trend of following the Luke, Leia, and Han's timeline, and but try to change it and break it down?
Well, yeah, they're gonna have to make Episode 9, but I don't. Luke is dead. Han's dead. I don't know what they're gonna do with Leia, because the actor is obviously no longer alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it looks like they are trying to break away from that, because I'm just kind of tired of the Empire and the Rebels, and it's just kind of a rehashing of the first 3 movies.
It really doesn't work. Being honest, I think so.
I thought they did a good job of kind of breaking away from the Empire versus the Rebels like type of story.
Yeah.
Because they weren't there was no rebels in the prequels. You know, they do have, I think the prequels do have a little bit of merit. There are some things that ruined it, just I guess Jar Jar Binks and stupid crap like that and the bad acting. But I thought there was a lot of merit for them breaking off and not making it an Empire versus the Rebel story.
Yeah. Yeah, like
Well,
I said,
guys,
I like that. I like how they kind of break the dualistic narrative between good and evil, and they try to point out that they're they're morally questionable things that people do on both sides.
Yeah, that's always a good thing to explore.
you really think so? I don't think so.
You like
I
the
think that
classic good and evil?
no, I think that Star Wars was just never able to do that. I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
my favorite thing would be Jar Jar Binks becoming, the ultimate evil person. There was this little story, there was this little narrative that Jar Jar Binks was supposed to be an evil Yoda. You
Oh, really?
guys heard of that? Heard of that?
That's an interesting idea.
I mean, yeah, I mean that this guy was just ridiculously powerful and stuff like that. He was supposed to be, the snow guy, or however you would like to call him. I mean, the most powerful guy in the universe was supposed to be Jar Jar Binks. And yeah, you haven't heard about that.
No.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, so I will try to figure it out. I mean, the best of YouTube movie about all this stuff, because people have understanding of it, that Jar Jar Binks was supposed to be, the negative Yoda, because being honest,
Negative Yoda.
yeah, being honest, I mean, Yoda was an idiot until he was a genius, right?
You think Yoda was an idiot?
Yoda was an idiot. Yoda was, smiling funny and laughing funny until he
Well,
was
Yoda definitely as an idiot in Empire Strike Back and Return of the
until
Jedi. Like,
he was a genius, and that was the point that those guys just figured out that in the the first time you just see this guy, he is sort of kind of Zen stories that this guy is an idiot, um you know um an animal, maybe, stuff like that, until he becomes, the most powerful structure in the universe.
That would be an
And
interesting movie to see.
yeah, and that was the point with Jar Jar Binks. There are some movies about that. There are just movie about that Jar Jar Binks was supposed to be something like that, but they were too stupid to figure it out,
Yeah.
because they had Christian Andersen, whatever his name was, a
the
guy
worst actor ever.
that
I
the
don't know if
guy
it was just like the lines were bad or if he's a bad actor, but
I
the
think it's both.
combination of the two was just a complete train wreck.
was
Plus the cheesy
ridiculous.
animation too. Everything
I
about
think
it.
some of the writing was just horrible. Like I consider Natalie Portman pretty good actress,
Yeah.
but
She's
some of
okay.
the lines are horrible. Like
Yeah.
I think there's this one moment when she falls off of a transport and I forgot who says if she's okay, and then she just gets up like nothing happened. and it looks like a total B movie scene.
Oh, I don't
Christ.
remember that one, but yeah.
It's bad. There's just some I don't know what was in their minds, like where they
Yeah.
what was who was it directed by? It wasn't directed by Lucas.
No, I don't think
It
any
was.
of the prequels were they? I don't know.
Every
No.
single one of those prequels were directed by Lucas.
Oh, they were?
No,
Yeah,
he
all of
handed it off to somebody to direct, didn't he?
No way, no way. Every single
Yeah.
one of those were directed by Lucas.
Are you
Okay,
sure?
I'm checking. I'm checking it right now. Okay, IMDb. Tiro, little thanks.
Episode
By the way,
Episode one is
what
the
would you
only
say if
one
there
I still
was?
can't watch. I can
What's
watch
that?
all
Why
the
did I just get?
what?
Which one can you still watch?
Why?
Oh, I said I can't. Episode one is the only one that I can't watch when I rewatch the Star Wars movies because it's just it's too cheesy.
I don't know. There's some parts of the first one that I think are good. Like, the light, of course, the final lightsaber battle is very
Yeah,
good.
that part's good. That's true. I should just
I
watch
did
the
enjoy
lightsaber
the
battle.
race, the speeder race.
Yeah, I don't even like the speeder race really. I don't like it. I think I just don't like the whole Anakin as a kid narrative because like stories about kids going on adventures is not that exciting to me. But I like episode 2 and 3. I like episode 3 too. I think I like episode 3 the most out of those ones.
Okay, Polish Christian Bale, you're right. He did direct it.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, and let's imagine what would happen if instead of this guy that was if there was just Christian Bale, this wonderful Anakin Skywalker. Jesus fucking Christ.
Okay, here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, there's so many different directors for the Star Wars. So the originals weren't directed by they weren't directed by Lucas.
Yeah, that's true,
Yep.
isn't it? Yeah.
The first one, yeah.
The first one, but Empire Strikes Back was not
Yeah.
directed by Lucas.
Yeah. What was this the name of this guy?
Irving Kershner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Return of the Jedi was not directed by Lucas.
You know that they wanted David Lynch to create.
Oh, really?
this.
That would have been
Yeah,
interesting.
indeed. Yeah.
That would have been strange. All right, so Lucas, he directed all the prequels, and
Yep.
let's see, and A New Hope.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I guess we can blame George Lucas as not being a good director of actors. Like if he was really meticulous and being a perfectionist about his scenes, he wouldn't have let some of those bad scenes get put in the final cut.
Yeah. Yeah.
But some of those dialogue scenes are just horrendous, especially like the love story stuff. It's so awkward.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Maybe that's part of why I like A New Hope the most out of the original trilogy, and maybe in part because George Lucas directed it.
Yeah, I always liked Empire the best.
Oh, I can't handle
yeah.
I can't handle the way that Han Solo is in the beginning of the movie though. It's like he's on his fucking period.
I mean, yeah, let's be honest. I mean, Harrison Ford just Harrison Ford. He doesn't work. He doesn't work. I mean,
Hey,
yeah, let's be honest. My brother is than me, and he cannot stand fucking Star Wars, and that's
it's
very interesting.
it's like
That's
Dusty was just
so
saying.
fucking interesting.
It's the dialogue, like in the original trilogy too, especially in my opinion anyway. The second and third in the original trilogy, some of the dialogue is just so unbelievably fucking cheesy.
Of course.
there's a lot of cheesy dialogue in Star Wars.
I mean,
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just gonna pivot a bit. Andrew, did you ever check out The Winter Dragon?
Which one?
The Winter Dragon?
I'm not sure.
The video I sent of the
Oh,
the prologue?
Yeah, yeah, I watched that. That was
What did you think?
thought that I wish that someone had done a better job than that. I don't feel like it's a good way to represent the Wheel of Time story.
Okay, I totally get you. I think they did a decent job of covering the prologue of the book, though.
Yeah. I think it was just like I think it was mostly the acting and how you were saying before. It seems lame, like a B movie the way it was shot.
All right, so there's only really two actors. Who do you think was the lamest?
The the guy other than Billy Zane, that's the main one, right? I thought
Yeah,
he
Billy Zane is playing Ishamael.
Yeah, I thought he was a little bit better.
So the guy playing Liz Theron was kind of laughable, right?
Yeah.
I was like, this is Liz Theron? Come on.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, Polish Christian Bale's like, what the hell are they talking about? All right, just you're
Yo,
sounding like
robot
a
voice.
robot. Sounds like you're trying to transform into a car.
Transform.
Okay, just to put in perspective
Exactly, yeah.
what we're talking about, because I don't want to alienate a bunch of people. This week, because me and Andrew have been reading the Wheel of Time series, which is a fantasy series. I think it really, I love it because it really talks about the balance of the world, which is something I'm very much interested in. But what happened was there was a company that bought the rights to the Wheel of Time, and in order to keep their rights, they had to produce something. So, in a very short time and small budget, they created a pilot episode for the book, and it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
And that's what we were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, if you read the books, there's a lot more to the characters in particular, like we were just saying, in the story that gets much more well executed in writing.
Uh-oh. Sound like you got some auto-tune on.
Polish Christian Bale on auto-tune.
Okay. All right. You got your connection sorted out?
I'm Batman.
All right. Here's another thing I want to bring up because we talked about it on Facebook a bit. Antifa.
was that a discussion on the Facebook group?
Well, it broke into like there was a discussion on the Facebook group about criticizing the left, and I don't know if you read it, but
I kind of had a bit of a debate with people about that, but then just bailed because it was just getting annoying, and I could tell that I was just getting defensive too. What's that? You still have a robot voice.
yeah, robotic Christian Bale.
Yes.
But I think in the conversation, people were getting, I would say, frustrated because they don't see a way of teaching the ideological extremes how to engage in discourse with somebody across the aisle that doesn't result in attacks and trying to claim moral superiority.
Yeah. Yeah. And
There are a lot of
people that maybe this is just me, but I haven't really experienced as much like I guess naive realism about how the other side sees political perspectives. I haven't experienced that as much myself with people like more to the center or more to the right as I have with people closer to the left or much farther left than me, which there's nothing wrong with that, of course, and I agree with a lot of left-wing positions myself, but like there were people that maybe I'm just too biased or maybe I'm just too dumb to understand, but there were people who were arguing that there's no radical left and also that there's no left-wing violence.
Yeah, those are people
coolest stuff ever. Coolest stuff ever. Thank you for that.
I know.
Yeah, those
right?
are of reality, pretty much. Yeah, there's left-wing violence. It's not super extreme or high, but it does exist. But I think during the discussion, and this is typical amongst some of our more left-wing individuals on mixed martial arts, their argumentation style does not benefit them. It's not persuading anybody.
Yeah, I don't think
so.
They're speaking to their own. They're not trying to convince anybody not in their particular ideology to join in on them. That's
a very good one. Very good one.
It's like it's like how someone was pointing out at one point also that so someone was saying that it's likely that from a Canadian perspective as well as from an American perspective, Bernie Sanders is center left or even center right. And
yeah, that's just ridiculous. Like if you're calling Bernie Sanders center left, you must be radical as fuck.
Yeah.
Like there's no way. But then again, those people aren't very common. Like even the left-wingers in our group wouldn't classify Bernie as center left.
Yeah. No, I don't think like any of the left-wing people I talk to personally would classify him that way.
Yeah, because a lot of them like him.
Yeah.
But just what I was saying though is it seems that there's a lot of arguments on mixed martial arts, and this is typical on the. I don't know why it is, because there's some lefty bashing, and it's typically very cogent and specific arguments about certain lefty things. But when the lefties bash the other side, they bash the entire party as a whole instead of picking out specific policies or issues. That's something that I see.
Yeah.
But what I was trying to relate to those people, and I was bringing up Antifa, and a lot of the further left people do not see how Antifa negatively impacts them in the election,
Yeah.
and they don't know that in conservative circles, Antifa are used in political ads.
Yeah.
And I was trying to tell them, your hand waving of Antifa is not helping you elect Democrats.
No. Like if you say stuff like that, it'll put people who are on the fence, who might be more right leaning, it'll just push them right into the conservative camp.
Yeah, so what I was trying to do is just show them that the rhetoric they use is not converting anybody to their side. It's just confirming the beliefs of their side that are already in their echo chamber.
Yeah.
Like,
like
there are some people that argue really well the economics of it. Like
Yeah.
Michael Murphy's really good at arguing, like really taking a very objective look at economic policies and
Yeah.
even showing how some left-wing policies are bad and some are really good. But
He's really
it
smart.
seems like the people who are on the far left are extremely reluctant of pointing out bad stuff in their own party.
Yeah. Yeah, like it seems like people get mad at me sometimes when I just endlessly make the point that there are problems on both sides, and the far right extremists and far left extremists are both problems that should be solved. It seems like a lot of the time when I make that point, people just endlessly point out, yeah, but the vast majority of violence is right-wing violence. I'm like, okay, I'm kind of skeptical of that, but maybe you're right. Even if you are, there still is left-wing violence that should also be solved. It's not like if you only solve the right-wing violence, that's going to solve the whole problem.
Yeah, also another problem that you encounter is false equivalency.
Yeah.
People say, oh, that's false equivalence, that's false equivalence. The problem, we're not talking about right-wing policy. The whole point of the discussion is not to do a whataboutism and say, oh, what about the Republicans here and here? It's like, let the Republicans introspect it. It's like, I don't want to bring up Jordan Peterson,
But you will.
I think the term clean up your room applies here.
Yeah, probably.
But it's
like,
a little bit closer to Jonathan Haidt, I think.
Yeah.
I'm just saying they should show good faith by attempting to clean up their room.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I run into this on both sides. I've run into it with right-wingers as well. They always use a whataboutism. What about them?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't care about them. I'm talking about your group right here.
Yeah.
What they do is irrelevant.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But
yeah,
I don't know.
Like it's I think like you were just mentioning Jonathan Haidt, Polish Christian Bale. I think that we've all talked about this many times, but it would be extremely useful, especially for political extremists or religious or anti-religious extremists of any kind, to read Jonathan Haidt's books, like The Righteous Mind and The Coddling of the American Mind, and kind of understand that people are looking at political issues from different perspectives, and that's why they think that the other side is immoral or they're idiots or something like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah, and then there's always the charge of you lack. Here's a charge I get a lot. You lack conviction or you lack uh, belief or something like that.
Yeah, I get that. I
yeah,
get that criticism sometimes too. Like, you don't have strength in your convictions enough. And I'm like, I don't. You want me to pick sides? I don't want to pick sides.
I don't want to be on any of the stupid sides.
Hmm.
I think it's harder to be an independent voice and to be have strength in your own opinions on policy than to rely on the strength of a collective that has the same
hmm.
opinions on everything.
I totally agree.
Cute one, cute one. Yeah, I like that. I like that. I mean, I have this little feeling that Hyde is somewhere in between of all of this stuff,
I
and
think
his
he's like a
ideas.
centrist.
Yeah, I mean, and his ideas about how we should, talk about uh, talk about talking about politics is closest to my heart, I think. And he has those six flavors about
Yes.
and I think they're just closest to what I would think would be how I figure out stuff with other people. Yeah, and this is why I think that this guy this book, um I mean, not the cuddling, the previous one. I mean,
Righteous
Righteous Mind.
mind.
Righteous Mind. Yeah, Righteous Mind was so fucking awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought that this particular one was so fucking awesome. Yeah,
me
this guy
too.
has
There's
some sort of an idea about things.
I've also discovered a grim reality um,
Okay.
about politics and moral foundations. The grim reality is that extremists on ends of the spectrum are pretty much never going to recognize the moral foundations that they deem invalid.
That's a
So
very depressing, grim reality.
it is, but it is what it is. And the
And it's
thing
not
about
that
centrists is that
depressing.
we recognize those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like you recognize that there are certain moralities that are extremely valid in one culture that aren't in another or in a political ideology. At least we could come to terms that these things are real to those people and
Hmm.
shouldn't be dismissed out of hand.
Yeah.
That is
And
the
it's like,
problem,
that's
the
exactly.
political division,
Yeah.
is that people's morality, when you become more divided, you're invalidating the other tribes' moral foundations that you do not recognize. And it
Yeah.
goes across both ways.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
but
It's like that person disagrees with me about this. They just don't have empathy. Or on the other side, that person doesn't agree with me about this. They're just fucking idiots.
yeah, but wasn't it, the being honest, the moment when I was saying that Americans have some political stuff figured out more than other people on this planet.
How so?
Um, because I mean, okay, so it was this little moment when Farid Zakaria said that he's interested in living in States. He came from India, but he doesn't want to, bring India into States. He wants to live in this country that was figured out by white people that came from one particular place in England.
Well, here's what I'll interject here.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with American politics is that it is completely stagnant and it's dependent upon people working together. And our system and if we take a look at just technology in general, cultural in general, environmental influences in general, it's very hard. It takes a lot of upheaval in American society before things change, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We're talking about constitutional amendments and everything of that nature, and it takes very special individuals for those things to change. Right now, we don't have those individuals. Like, we're talking about people like Martin Luther King, and then those type of civil rights activists, or those who put forth women's suffrage, those who federalized the legalization of gay marriage. Like, the people at the forefront of all of these movements did not do it in a form of pitting their identities against the identity of somebody else.
For sure.
They all did it in fashion of, here,
Hey, it's
these are our here is our identities, and here, these are the things of why we are similar, and these are why we deserve respect.
Yeah.
It's more about connecting
humanity mindset,
people.
right?
Yeah, we need those special individuals to move things forward, and right now we don't have any of them.
You had those guys in the history of your project, and that's astonishing.
Yeah, you have to remember too, none of these guys were rich old white people either.
One more time, because I couldn't hear that.
Like Martin Luther King.
One more time.
I'm just saying, none of these guys that are pushing these issues aren't rich old white people.
Sure, they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm from Poland.
So
the most important guy in history of our particular project was a guy that was a guy from a street, Lech Wałęsa, right? And he became sort of kind of a figure like Pope or your president. What was his name? I mean, Reagan. Yeah, this one. Yeah, and you can go with these things. You can create your culture. I'm not saying however you would like to, because it doesn't work like that. But you could go with your culture.
Here, let me just push back on you a bit with the whole Zakaria thing.
Sure.
Here's the thing. People say America was created by rich white people. It's largely irrelevant.
Sure.
It may have been relevant when it happened, but it's not relevant now. I do not think. And
yeah,
it's like saying basketball was created by white people. Is that relevant?
No, because basketball is not created by white people. It's created by black people.
No, it wasn't. It was created by white people.
But the sensible basketball is black.
What do you mean by sensible basketball?
Basketball that works. I mean, Russell Westbrook.
Like basketball.
I mean, Michael Jordan.
The best basketball players used to be Jewish.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I love this. I love this little thing. I mean, that was Steve Kerr said that. I do understand that we would lose with guys from 60s. We would lose with guys from 50s. No, we wouldn't lose with guys from 50s. I mean,
Okay, I think
jazz.
okay,
Okay,
I
let's be honest.
understand
Let's be
like
honest.
the
Hold on.
origin of ideas is
Jazz. Let's
important.
talk about jazz. Let's talk about jazz. Jazz
Okay.
is a bunch of black people that took instruments from white people and never gave those back
Okay,
because
No,
they
actually,
were better
jazz
about
now
that.
is
incorrect.
largely dominated by white people.
No, it's not.
Nowadays
Today
it
it
is.
is.
What with
Modern jazz, like today, it's a bunch of
Yeah.
white people playing horns.
No, one more time because I couldn't hear
Okay,
you. Just
a big band show that was full of black people playing horns.
you serious?
In America, at least.
I seriously, fuck. Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
okay, go watch
Coltrane is black.
videos
I
of
mean, let's be honest.
go
Let's be
watch
honest.
videos of modern jazz festivals. There's a ton of
Uh,
white people playing
fuck.
music. It's not all white people, but I'm saying there's a ton of them.
Yeah.
That's how cultural appropriation can be good.
Mm.
It's not good
I
at
think
all. What the fuck?
what I'm saying is the origin of okay, the creator of something is not really that important. It's what the tool, who is using the tool, who is using that tool and progressing that forward. Like I understand there's these arguments like, oh, white people created this, white people created that. That's largely irrelevant, in my
Sorry,
opinion.
that's because no. Now I see that what I was talking about could be just. I'm not saying offensive, but it might be annoying what I was talking about. But think that I really think that Jess is black. I really think that NBA is, let's be honest. Uh,
You could
Kevin
say the
Durant.
NBA is
Kevin
black
Durant.
today.
Kevin Durant is NBA. NBA is not, those white people from Boston Celtics. It doesn't work. It won't work. No fucking way. What I think that we should understand that when we do some things, those things work or they don't. The point about United States of America is that there was a bunch of guys that came from England, from a one place in England, then figure out how to write down the Constitution of the United States of America.
Wasn't it from
There
more
is
than one place in England?
one place in England. There is not a single German person that had a had anything to do with all of this stuff.
Okay.
And that's the point. And that's the point. And this is why I hear this guy like Farid Zakaria. Yeah, Farid Zakaria. Yeah,
it's Farid
that's his
Zakaria.
name.
Yeah.
I came to United States of America because I believed in this one particular project, and I don't want to bring, with me all of this stuff that I was brought in India.
Right.
That was the point. That was the point. And this is what is so fucking wonderful.
Well,
I
here's the
know.
funny thing. It's impossible for Farid Zakaria not to bring India with him.
Yeah. Okay. Agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. There must be some sort of India that comes with this guy. There must be some sort of India.
Yes.
But his idea is that I want United States of America. I want to be here with these people, with those ideas, because there are ideas about states,
Like
and I
what?
love those ideas. Like what? Like capitalism, for instance. For the beginning, all of the stuff. United States of America in 80s were better than Soviet Union. Little things,
in terms of
little
capital.
things. In in case of living. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't like to live in Soviet Union in the 80s because it was fucking bankrupt, and everybody understood that states won on on this single level of economy.
Who is
That was the point.
this person who's talking right now? What's your name?
Polish Christian Bale.
Polish Christian Bale.
Polish Christian Bale. Polish Christian Bale. Did you live in the Soviet Union in the 1980s?
Exactly. I was born there.
Were you growing up there? Were you a young adult or a young child there in the Soviet Union in the 1980s?
Born 1985.
Born 1985. So your experience with the Soviet Union in the 1980s constituted your years as a toddler. Correct?
One more time. Excuse me. One more time.
You were a toddler during your years in the Soviet Union, correct? Meaning that you were not of an age to have a substantive opinion about the nature of life in the Soviet Union. Is that correct?
Exactly.
So when we talk about how things were in the 1980s, you're relying on secondhand accounts. So your testimony as to how things were, I assume you're Polish, correct?
Exactly.
I assume your account of how things were in communist Poland in the 1980s is based on secondhand accounts that you got from adults who lived through that time in the Soviet Union. Is that correct?
Okay, where you go with that?
So what I'm hearing is that you're lionizing the United States in the 1980s versus other statuses of the world from the 1980s forward, right? And
you can say that, yeah.
And it is based on secondhand accounts of what you've heard about other places in the world ex post facto, after the fact, right?
Kinda.
So you do not know how know how you would have lived in the 1980s in the Soviet Union or in communist Poland in the real sense of you living through it. Just as I don't know how an American would have lived in the 1980s in Kansas.
Sure.
And experience their life, right? So to compare two things that we cannot compare, saying I would have been better off in Kansas in the 1980s in the United States versus communist Poland, is to assign our own values to situations in which we did not live. And that in and of itself
agree, yeah.
That in and of itself is saying, oh boy, it would have been nice to live in this fairy tale land that I have no real information about and no real tangible reference to, just based on some underlying ideology that comports with my current ideology, whether or not it's real or made up in your head. So what I'm hearing in this conversation, not discarding the
no, I mean no.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, please tell me where I'm going with that. Because
well, let me
I
provide you an
do agree with that.
anecdote. Let me provide you with an anecdote. The 1980s was the American era of greed is good. Would you say that? So you'd think that the worldview of the United States is like, oh, everybody must be doing well there. Look at how much money they're making.
Yeah.
And in the 80s, it's like, holy shit, look at how well the stock market is doing. Right? You would probably say that. That would be the general view of people outside looking in. But I'll tell you this. In the 80s, I was eating government cheese and drinking powdered milk. That's what I was doing in the 80s in the United States.
What's government cheese taste like?
Like
government cheese is actually pretty good.
Okay.
But it was what government cheese was is that there was some cockamamie idea that the United States was going to subsidize cheese farmers, and they had a way too big of a surplus, so they decided to give it away to a bunch of people who were struggling there. So
okay.
We got government cheese, we got powdered milk, some other things as well, but that's basically sounds a little like communism, doesn't it? So I'm saying it's like there is this rose-colored glasses view.
The whole Roosevelt guy sounds like communism, being honest. The Roosevelt
I'm just saying
guy.
there is a rose-colored glasses
FDR is just the most communist guy in the history of, let's be honest, in United States.
Who?
No. Okay, stop. Hold on.
Ah!
Mr. Polish Christian Bale.
Go there.
It feels like you have a very not informed conception of what American history is. A lot of what was said about Mr. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was that he was a communist, but that was a lot of that rhetoric came from the South specifically, because a lot of the programs that the cohort, that the political coalition that Roosevelt had created was anti-segregationist. So in the United States, you can't separate the Red Scare rhetoric from the white supremacist rhetoric. So this is part of the problem, is that a lot of people who are not from the United States do not know the history of political rhetoric from the United States, and do not know the charged ideological underpinnings of this rhetoric, right? So we have people like Joseph McCarthy, the famed senator from the state of Wisconsin, who was the most ardent anti-communist senator in the 1950s, right? So much of his rhetoric was based on trying to refute ideology that called for equality between the races, regardless of whether or not it was anti-communist, right? So it was anti-segregationist because segregation was, or the destruction of segregation was associated with communism. So that is an underpinning of that rhetoric. Secondarily, within the context of Franklin Roosevelt himself, Franklin Roosevelt did not have state-run economic programs in the way that were extant in the Soviet Union. They were more akin to what was later adopted based on the American model by Nazi Germany, meaning that they were public-private partnerships in which governments gave monopolies to private companies to enact enact infrastructure and industrial and agricultural endeavors, such as price controls for milk, which was just described by Dustin. Like, the whole idea of government cheese was that the government wanted to institute a price control for dairy products because the dairy products were outstripping, like, the price of dairy products was too high. So they wanted to drive the price down.
Okay. Do you like FDR?
I don't care. He's dead. Why do I care?
Why do you say that? You're interested in politics.
Roosevelt's dead. Franklin Roosevelt's dead. What does Franklin Roosevelt have to do with my life today? I pay Social Security because that was a bill that was passed by Congress when he was president. But Franklin Roosevelt himself is dead. What does he have to do with my life today?
For fuck's sake, I mean, Heidegger is dead.
Heidegger is dead too. What does Heidegger have to do with my life today?
I mean, because
I don't give a fuck about Heidegger. We can talk about Heidegger.
Okay, I don't care. Okay, you're right.
Well, here's a question: do you like J.R.R. Tolkien?
I like the stories that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote. I don't give a fuck about J.R.R. Tolkien, the person. I care about the stories that he wrote because these stories are interesting to me.
Do you write FDR stories?
It's like
no.
It's like
no.
Isaiah, you don't like this stuff because I have this.
I don't like it.
Okay, it's not about the like of the person.
Isaiah,
what do you think about FDR's policies?
What do I think about FDR's policies is a better question. Because I don't care about FDR the man. He's dead. What am I going to do about FDR the man? That's irrelevant. What do I think about FDR's policies? I think that some of them were good and some of them were bad.
Useful.
Like most things, right?
Yeah. Just like let's talk about W.T. Sherman. My favorite Civil War general, William Tecumseh Sherman, who marched from Mississippi to Georgia and up through the Carolinas, right? He broke the back of the Confederacy by destroying the Confederate ability to have an economy, right? Everybody from the South hates W.T. Sherman. W.T. Sherman has a quote basically saying, "Ain't no niggers gonna be in Uncle Billy's army." William T. Sherman was a Union general who was a goddamn racist, hated black people, but also liberated slaves along his war path. What do I think of W.T. Sherman? He's my favorite Civil War general because of his time, he did the most to help the most. Because war is hell, and that's how you execute a war, by making it hellish. So, in the Great Depression, we have FDR, who was faced with great economic strife and had to make do with the tools he had at hand. As the President of the United States, which, by the way, when FDR had become president in 1933, was not as expansive of power as it is today.
Agreed.
So while FDR could have all these great ideas, nothing could happen unless Congress had passed the laws that were passed by Congress in the 1930s. The laws passed with the New Deal did not dig the United States out of the Great Depression. The United States did not get out of the Great Depression until 1940, in which Lend-Lease was instituted, which basically allowed a tremendous amount of industrial endeavors to start in a public-private partnership where companies like Ford Motor Company and Kaiser Shipbuilding and Lockheed Martin and Republic Aircraft were giving government contracts to provide war materiel for the Allies, right? So that in and of itself instituted a great amount of government expenditure from bonds and taxes to stimulate the economy, much in the way that Keynes had described how you get out of a recession. Great amount of basically selling bonds and raising taxes and stimulating infrastructure and economic growth through government expenditure, right? Which in his time, Keynes was labeled as a socialist, and very well, he might have been a democratic socialist in the political rhetoric of the day. However, the actions of Franklin Roosevelt and John Maynard Keynes and all the government expenditure for the war effort and the post-war reconstruction cannot be construed to be the same as the efforts of communist nations such as the Soviet Union or the People's Republic of China, because they're very different.
Those places, I have no
and to compare them, it's just is apples and oranges.
How did you go there? Man, it's just beyond my comprehension. Sorry.
So how did I get to this conversation?
I have no fucking idea how you just. I have no idea what you.
So we were talking about Reagan.
I mean, we kind of agree. Correct? We kind of agree, and you are so fucking annoying that it's so fucking patronizing that I just can't stand you. Fuck. You are so fucking unbearable, man.
Welcome to
Glory. We still agree, and we still agree.
What do we agree on? What do we agree on, and what do we disagree on?
I mean, we agree on fucking everything.
Do we? Do we though?
Yeah, I think so. You like Zizek? I think so.
Zizek?
Zizek. Yeah.
I haven't read Zizek, and I'm not a Marxist. I don't care about what Marxists write, except for it to be like you're dumb because everything within your ontology is materialistic, and materialism means nothing to me.
I don't think so. I mean, Zizek is kind of, smart in the sense that he's Lacanian. He's French, kind of, and things. I don't know, man.
What's Lacanian mean?
Jacques Lacan. Jacques Lacan was a French psychoanalyst in the 1970s who expounded upon both Freudian and Jungian psychoanalysis and kind of turned them on its head and made like psychoanalysis a more what's the word I'm looking for? A more individualized endeavor. Instead of having great structures to throw people in, Lacan took an approach to put people in their own context and kind of expand upon individual context to try and improve individuals' lives therein.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Something like that. Yeah. I mean, he's European. He was just being strange in this sense that he was just inventing those Jordan B. Peterson things through ideology.
That's not a fair thing to say, because so let's ask a fundamental question. What is ideology?
Exactly, and this is the moment where just Zizek is happy right now.
Yeah.
Answer the question. What is ideology?
Where do you go from the place you are? What is the place you would like to go? I mean, ideology is every single thing that creates me a human being I am.
So would it be fair to say
ideology is a morality filter?
So would it be fair to say that there is no human without ideology?
I would say so.
And that's the coolest thing, and that's the place where Zizek comes online.
But within that context, let's talk about Jordan Peterson again. Jordan Peterson rails against the prevalence of ideology within people, right? So
Yeah, sure.
So by saying that individuals having individual ideology or an ideology in and of itself is a negative aspect of humanity, is to say that humans in and of themselves are negative.
I wouldn't say that Jordan Peterson says that ideology is negative or that he's not ideological himself.
What does Jordan Peterson say?
He doesn't
About
like
what?
extremists.
About ideology. About ideology in and of itself.
He sees problems with extreme ideologies of any kind.
So let's talk about extremism. What is extremism?
It's I don't know. It's like an extreme interpretation of a particular.
So can you have an ideology that exists as an extreme without a reference point to this is not extreme?
No, of course not.
So extremism in and of itself is relative. Would that be an accurate statement?
Yeah.
So being that extremism is relative, if you have a position that is so reactionary as to be fundamentalist and or so conservative that it's, say, paleo-conservative, anything that is, unabashedly rejectionary to the conservative viewpoint could be construed as reactionary.
Are you saying that Jordan Peterson is conservative?
I don't care about what Jordan Peterson is. I'm talking about the logic of what is reactionary or what is extremist, right?
Okay.
So let's say
extremist is just beyond the norm or beyond the mean.
But that is a relativist position. And extremism cannot exist without a normative position. A normative position, regardless of what it is culturally dependent. And therefore, that culturally dependent position is dependent on the people who live in that society. And if a quote unquote extremist position is so outside the bounds of that society will inevitably have conflict, right? So an extremist position confronted with a normative position is automatically going to have conflict, right? But in a society where, say, free speech, like the United States, is paramount, how do we determine what is the normative position versus what is an extremist position?
So in Nazi Germany, Nazism is the normative position?
Yes. In Nazi Germany, Nazism was the normative position to an extent, but not to the extent that is often held to be true. But in the United States, in contemporary to the Nazi regime in Germany, Nazism was more normative in the United States than it was in Germany, meaning that the most prevalent political campaign in the 1930s was the America First campaign, which was championed by people like Charles Lindbergh, which was a eugenicist and white supremacist campaign that extolled the virtues of segregation and forced sterilization of the slow-minded, the decrepit, and
Jews,
backwards minorities, not just Jews. Not just Jews.
I said and Jews.
Not just Jews, but Jews, Mexicans, Italians, blacks, any race that could be construed as feeble-minded or backwards or primitive, et cetera, et cetera. That was the prevalent notion within the United States. So that was a normative position. So a person like Franklin Roosevelt could be construed as extremist in that context because he was not a eugenicist. However, he was a segregationist in many ways. So
I mean, when you go with that, I mean, everything is fucked. If
everything's fucked, and we're all gonna die. That's the world we live in.
No, because we just do mixed matter ultra stray, and I talk with people from Canada and from the United States that are so fucking awesome, and we talk about, living, not dying.
So
And it's awesome.
I love talking about awesome things. That goes without saying. But the reality is that you're gonna die. I'm gonna die. Everybody that you know is gonna die.
I'm talking about quality. The fact that we are just gonna die is kind of obvious, but you know what? When I see people like you, I would like to ask about what is quality for you. What you think is those things, those moments that would just drag you a little bit more into lightness, not oblivion.
That's
the point.
Into lightness. That's a value statement that I don't share with you.
You're the coolest guy on this planet. For a fuck's sake, you've got California Republic back, and this wonderful guitar. What was that? It's looks like a Gibson.
That one?
That's Gibson. Yeah.
Oh, that's an Epiphone.
Good one.
I have a Gibson upstairs, but I have a whole bunch of other ones right there.
Yeah. But all those quality moments are those moments I'm most interested in.
Yeah,
and these
so
are just
am I.
About. And I think that
Well, that's the thing, though. I love talking about the joyous moments, but that doesn't. The joyous moments do not get rid of the fact that everything sucks and we're all gonna die.
Sure.
We're all gonna die.
I love music. I love movies. I love cartoons. I love comic books. I love reading scholarly papers about the origins of humanity. But regardless of any endeavor that I do, nothing is going to change the fact that I live in the body that I live in now. And as time goes by, the energy and the telomeres and the ribosomes in my body are going to destroy it upon some day, and I will no longer exist.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing changes. Nothing changes that. So what do I do now? I enjoy the moments that I have as long as I can.
Great idea.
See, what Isaiah is saying is the reason why I stopped being a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel like it's an existentialist thing, and it's not a Heideggerian existentialism. I don't give a fuck about Dasein or like the great being, because there's no great being. We're all going to fucking die, whether or not you believe that some fucking thing in the sky exists. No, you have to embrace the absurdity of life and enjoy it regardless of how absurd it is.
Yeah.
And that's the fundamental idea that anybody who considers existence deeply should arise at. That's my personal, viewpoint. It doesn't matter what your ontology or epistemology is, because regardless of how you think about things, you're going to end up in a position where nothing makes sense, but you're still faced with your own mortality.
Yeah.
So because of the inability to make sense of life as it is, you have to embrace that and try to move forward anyway. And that's what embracing the absurd is. Now,
agree.
Yeah.
Agree. Yeah.
So that's the fundamental position of like how I live my life. But if we're going to talk about politics, that's a whole other conversation altogether, because we're talking about groups that are not us.
Exactly.
Yep.
So if we're talking about communism versus capitalism, we cannot talk about them in vacuums. Meaning
Okay.
that
Mhm.
meaning
Excuse
that
me.
we cannot talk about communism versus capitalism without talking about the Cold War. And we can talk about the Cold War if you want to.
That and communism and capitalism are theoretical.
Yeah.
Yes.
They don't exist.
Nothing
don't.
exists.
No
Everything's a simulation.
No pure that we have an example of.
What was that, Dusty?
There's no pure version that we have an example of.
Yeah.
Yeah, because being
There's
honest, I
only-
mean, I think that Isaiah might be, frustrated by me saying that United States of America is, this ultimate project that just works and everything around it just so fucking awesome.
Well, because you
Go there. Maybe
because you can't see the forest through the trees.
Go there.
Is what I'm saying. Is like, unless you live in a place to see the positive and negative of it, you can't really evaluate it fully. Like, I would never say that Poland is a good or bad place based on its history, because I've never been there and I didn't live through those historical periods. And I can't say that living in the 1930s is a good or bad place to be, because I didn't live there. I can only speak to my own experience, because experience dictates one's moral intuitions more so than one's teachings. Like, you can believe that killing is good or bad based on your morality, based on how you were raised to believe about the value of human life. But unless you have taken life, you do not have a real experience in the value of human life.
Sure.
And just as such, you cannot have an evaluation of a historical time period without having lived through it. All you have is the recollections and records of individuals who have lived through that time period, which can be useful in painting a picture of the past, but a picture of the past is nothing but a narrative, no more convincing than a fairy tale in many ways. And that's part of the problem with historiography, is that we can never understand the past without having lived through the past. And everybody's understanding of the past is subjective. So there's no empirical evaluation of the past.
Okay, Isaiah.
A lot of it is also filtered from a particular socioeconomic status as well.
Of course, especially with the historiography that is prevalent within academic history writing vis-a-vis American history, because so much of it isn't based on a social history of the United States. And that's why we don't know as much about how people lived during the Great Depression versus how the government dealt with the Great Depression. We don't know the firsthand experiences of soldiers on Iwo Jima so much as we know the grand strategic, importance of taking Iwo Jima. And this is how history has been written. It's not so much that history is written by the victors. It's more so that history is written by people who can write history, and not everybody has that luxury.
Yeah. Good one. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, but being honest, I mean, my question is, I'm not saying that there is a narrative that is right or wrong. My question is, where we are right now, where we go from here. Boom.
Where are we at right now? Where are we at right now? That's the question that we're all trying to answer, and nobody has a concise and complete answer. That's why there's so much conflict within politics, is that nobody can say, this is empirically, this is objectively where we're at, because nobody has a viewpoint that is not subjective. And unless people develop a certain sense of empathy to understand other people's points of view, there is no such thing as trying to build common ground, because we all live in this land where we believe that our view is subjective and the other person is lying.
Yep, exactly.
That's the problem.
Okay, I agree. But my thing is that, okay, I think that Mixed Martial Arts 3 is sort of kind of platform to figure out what the playing is, what the place where we come from is.
To me, mixed martial arts is how to better position your mind to deal with the amount of information that you're presented with on a day-to-day basis. Be it, you know, whether or not you're taking in as much academic information as a scholar, or whether or not you're a Joe Schmo, you know, working a 9 to 5, you know, because regardless of what your position is, you're going to take in a certain amount of information. And mixed martial arts is the way that you handle that information, and understanding that, you know, you have to refine your thought processes to better discern how this information is relevant to you and how to use it to better your own life.
And let's be honest, you have no better place to go.
To me, I would agree. And I hope that in the future it continues to expand in that direction. And but it's hard to present a nuanced and balanced view in this day and age, because we live in an age of extremism, regardless of what position you take.
Exactly.
Everybody who disagrees with you is an extremist.
And we also live in an age of extreme accessibility to confirmation bias.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think that looking at information and saying that this, that, or the other is, you know, useful without understanding the subjective position of your interlocutor is useful. You have to understand some first principles about your ontology before you can look forward at the you know, political ideologies that spring from it, because a lot of the things that we go forward with within our political discourse is based on fundamental ontological differences within our philosophies about life and ethical differences, right? So, like, you guys were talking about how the NBA is black or white earlier. The NBA, like, basketball is a sport. It's a construct. It's not a black construct. It's not a white construct.
Don't go there.
It's a black construct. It's not a white construct. It just so happens that in the United States, there's more black people who play basketball than white people. And as a consequence of that, black people are better at it than white people.
White can jump. It's just as simple as that.
So for a field for that, I look at track and field and weightlifting, right? Because those are better measurements of pure physical acumen, right? So the world records for weightlifting, the strongest people in the world are almost all Russian.
Yeah.
The fastest people in the world are almost all Jamaican, but not African. The fastest people over middle distance are mixed. You get a smattering of North Africans being Arabs and East Africans being East Africans, which is a whole other. We could talk about race. I've talked about race ad infinitum on other of these chats. So the reason why you get an Ethiopian or Kenyan showing out in the 1500 or in the 3200 meters versus a Moroccan, having the world record for 10 years in the 1500 meters, why is that? Is it a genetic thing? It's complicated, but
it could be environmental. It could be a lot of different things.
But we also have the fact that within the statistics that we gain from looking at, say, the top 100 races of all time, or the top 100 finishers of all time in international events for track and field, some 15 of the top 100 100-meter dash times of all, or 100-meter dash runners of the last 10 years are Chinese. And the world record holder in the 110-meter hurdles is Chinese. Also, half of the world records for weightlifting under 85 kilos are Chinese or North Koreans. And most of the historical world records for weightlifting are former communist, either Soviet Union or other communist republics in Eastern Europe. So what does that tell us about the history of those sports? It's that those sports were valued by those cultures, meaning that there was more money and more time spent on training in those sports.
Exactly.
So where do we land with football and basketball in the United States? There are more
black people like
playing those.
Black people like to play basketball.
Black people like to play basketball, and there's nothing wrong with saying that, because it's a cultural evaluation and not a genetic evaluation.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, outside of the United States, like say the Brazilian basketball team. The Brazilian basketball team isn't all that great, but the Brazilian soccer team is fucking fantastic. So what does their culture value? They value soccer.
Yeah. And white people like to be quarterbacks.
In the United States. And that's a whole other topic. That's a whole other thing that we could talk about with football. Like the evaluation of what certain races of people can bring to the football field, because it's not a purely athletic endeavor. It's a team sport with skills. So we can look at track and field is a better fiat for evaluating what different people are able to do. And the data that is presented by track and field and weightlifting and other purely athletic endeavors, strength, speed, explosiveness endeavors, is that overall people are basically the same. So to say that black people are better at basketball is to ignore the whole cultural aspect of why black people dominate the NBA in the United States.
And also which black people, what kind of black people? There are many different kinds of black people.
That's a factor too. But like any positive stereotype is still a racial stereotype, and it's still racist. And that's part of the problem within the discourse about race. And that's,
I don't know that, you know what, I think that people are different, and Jews are better with other things that black people are better with. I think that's a
fundamentally ignorant statement about what human diversity is.
You're fucking ignorant. You're just useless. Let's be honest. Coltrane is fucking black.
Yes. Right? And Big Spiderbeck was white. And Big Spiderbeck and
all those other people that are
Tommy Dorsey was Irish, and
And my favorite
Miles Davis was black.
trumpet. My favorite trumpet is Dave Douglas. Is Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Irving Berlin was Jewish.
Ah, cool things.
Lady Gaga, I think, is Jewish, but I'm not sure.
I think so. Yeah. Close,
Taylor
close,
Swift
close.
is Scots-Irish.
Obviously.
And then, like, look, I think one of the things you check
Cardi
out
B
today,
is
like
mixed.
current pop music, how many like non-blacks are very much adopting the hip hop style? It's increasing pretty big.
Yeah, because it's a cultural it's a cultural invention and not an endemic genetic trait. It's so stupid to assign to say that this is black, meaning that this is genetically black and not looking at the culture.
I absolutely disagree with you, Isaiah. I think that it's very important to say that there are some people that are, for instance, that they came from England, from one place, and they were Protestants, and they just invented United States of America.
But that's not what happened.
That was what happened.
No, it wasn't.
Do you have any German guy that signed Constitution of the United States of America? No. Who was this guy?
So Benjamin Franklin was from the Pennsylvania Dutch region of southeastern Pennsylvania, but let me check. But
yeah, wasn't New York a Dutch colony?
Yes,
that's the point. I mean, guys, that's the point. I mean, there was some that have.
By the way, Germany didn't exist in 1776. Just so you know.
What? You're turning into a robot.
I think your Polish internet is failing you right now.
Your Polish internet sucks.
Yeah, well, I'll just have you do a little.
I have this, and that was holy.
What?
We heard robot.
Robot.
Who was the robot? Was I with the robot?
Yeah, you were a robot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I mean, Holy Roman Empire was never holy. It wasn't never Roman, and was never empire.
Thank you, Voltaire.
There you go.
Little thanks, Isaiah.
But
I think what we're trying to say is whoever started it is irrelevant and it's not inherent to the race. Like
there's no American race.
Yeah,
there's no American race. And talking about the English origins of the United States is completely irrelevant in 2018 because the wasps
because we got Texas, we got Louisiana. None of those places had anything to do.
California, Arizona, everything except for New England and the Old South are like
and Constitution of the United States. Oh my goodness, you're ridiculous, Isaiah. You're really ridiculous.
No, that's right. I've actually studied American history, so I mean.
So yeah, so you're right. Exactly.
Yeah, Texas wasn't. It was just what? It's not a bunch of people from England going to Texas. Louisiana was a French colony. Yeah, Dutch New York.
Yeah, sure things.
Florida was a Spanish colony.
Yep, it was.
It's a mix of everything. Like
and the Constitution was based off the Iroquois Confederation. So
and the Constitution
Yeah.
is not the end all be all
because there's amendments to it.
Okay.
it gets upgraded.
Sure.
So what's the point of extolling the British when talking about the United States? Because the whole point of the United States is that we're not British.
Exactly. That there was, a bunch of people that said that they wanted to be themselves. They never wanted to be, monarchy. Excuse
Yeah,
me.
but
Right?
the people who left were extremely puritanical.
Well, some of them were. Some of them were just like trying to make a buck.
No,
Oh yeah, some came to make a buck.
And others were indentured servants, and others were criminals.
Mm-hmm. I mean, my question is, if people that that are in movies or Scorsese's movies, are they people that create United States of America?
Who?
Like The Godfather?
What are you talking about? What
about
The Godfather?
What is? Are we talking? Are we asking what is the United States?
Yeah.
Like, what is the soul of the United States?
Exactly.
The soul of the United States is fuck you, pay me.
Ah, fuck you. That was really cheap.
Well, that's what it is. No, I'm not saying fuck you. I'm saying the soul of the United States is, in quotes, fuck you, pay me. Because that's the whole spark of it, right? It's the Parliament of the United Kingdom saying, "Hey, we're going to, put all these taxes on you," and the people of the United States, primarily people who had money, saying, "Fuck you, we're not going to pay you," and then everything built from there.
Yeah, and that's why so many people get sued in the United States. It's fuck you, pay me.
Yeah.
There's a litigious mindset. That makes sense.
Well, it's not even a litigiousness. It's a people trying to get what they can from other people in general. It's a fuck you, pay me. It's not a litigiousness. Like, if by hook or by crook, it's fuck you, pay me.
Yeah. The mob is fuck you, pay me.
I mean,
they have different means of getting paid.
So, do you think that makes it the best country in the world then, Polish Christian Bale?
I never said that. That is the best country in the world. But for fuck's sake, I'm just telling you guys that your country is something more than it's supposed to be. Excuse me?
What was that, Dusty?
That he likes it more in comparison to his own country, is that right?
No, I didn't say that. I said
so you
that
like Poland. You like Poland more.
It's not like that. I mean, there is a logic behind how all of this stuff that you just did appeared. And I think so. I will never tell you guys that you are more important, that every other country. I mean, for a fuck's sake, I mean, I can go with, Stalinist country somewhere more intelligent than you guys. I'm going with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and I hear that this guy was just useless. So what the fuck do I know?
Who says that FDR was useless?
You.
No, I said that I don't like him, but he wasn't useless.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, people do things. People live on this planet, and I think, I mean, we should figure out what is the project that we're doing right now. That's most important thing right now for every single human being on this planet, I think. What this project is going to be, is beyond me, because I don't know that. I have no fucking idea. I think that United States of America invented some sort of a behavior that is just a little bit better than every single other place on this planet. And I think that Chinese doing this communist stuff right now is not as good as what state is about.
What?
Who do they know?
What do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean that Chinese is doing their own communist project right now. That they, for instance, they create cities that are 2 million people are supposed to live there, like Ordos, those little places, and those cities are empty. And after 2 years after building those cities, they just put people inside of those places without any economy behind that. This is what China is doing right now.
Are you saying it's more difficult to work out an economy with an extremely large population?
I mean, it's not economy. It's just fucked up. Let's be honest. You build a city for 2 million people, and nobody's paying for those places. Nobody's paying for living there. And out of the sudden, you just take people from cottages and just put those people into those places. This is what China is doing.
Oh, it's not as bad as creating.
Because
I'm talking about China. I'm talking about what China is doing right now.
But that's not what they're doing.
What are they doing?
They're not doing that. I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. And I'm like, I've been studying China for my entire professional life. I mean, there are cities that have been built
5 years ago, maybe.
There are cities that have been built with no residents in them, but they still have no residents. So it's not like they're forced relocating people in 2018 or even in 2012 or 2003. They're not forced relocating people in China, and they haven't since the 1950s.
And you say that, yeah.
Yeah, because
dude. Yeah, they're not forcing people to live there. They're just ghost towns.
So talking about Chinese GDP, so much of Chinese GDP is based on their infrastructure expenditures, because like within GDP, anything that is spent for infrastructure is counted in positive GDP. So much of Chinese GDP growth is based on infrastructure growth or infrastructure spending. So they spend it on railroads and they spend it on real estate, and that's part of what it is. But the amount it works. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, countries spend money that doesn't translate into real growth all the time.
So it's like an inflated. Was it done to inflate their GDP falsely, or
it's not even communism anymore? It's just ridiculous. It's just retarded.
Well, the government line is socialism with Chinese characteristics. That's what they say. And the Chinese Communist Party has never said that China is a communist country. It's a socialist country that is trying to reach communism. So, I mean,
it's Marxists in this understanding that this is what is what Marx was just basically writing about.
Yeah,
and I can I write that?
It's also Marxist-Leninist though, and Leninism is completely different than Marxism. So when we talk about
Marxism, I hope it's still Marxism, not Leninism. Yeah,
What?
but
What do you
yeah,
mean?
I mean, I hope that it's Marxism, not Leninism, because I mean, Lenin was much more political than economical. Let's be honest, right?
Well, but
Yeah,
Mao set up the People's Republic of China on a Marxist-Leninist basis, and then added his own thing, meaning that they're like constant class struggle, and instead of taking workers as the basis of the people that make up the basis of the country, he took agricultural workers. Those are two of the main differences between Marxism-Leninism versus Maoism. And like all these things are different. And to say that what appears in Das Kapital is the same as what Mao tried to implement in the People's Republic of China is inaccurate. But at the same time,
yeah,
what we're talking about with China today is not at all what Mao Zedong was trying to implement in the People's Republic of China. Nor was it what Deng Xiaoping was trying to get to. So it's like when we talk about China, it's a whole other conversation that you have to understand China to understand how the Chinese Communist Party works. Like these things don't operate in a vacuum. You can't simplify them to that extent.
Yeah. And it's not like,
I mean,
capitalist follies don't have a giant impact on the world either.
Yeah.
I mean, but
2008.
Capitalism in and of itself just describes how market works. Well, market works.
Free versus command, right?
Yeah. And well, not even free versus command, but that an individual who has something will trade it for something of equal or greater value based on his own self-interest.
Mm-hmm.
And with a corporation and partable ownership, then it becomes that a corporation will trade for something in the expectation that they could get something else in return for equal or greater value. That's how capitalism works.
Do Chinese have corporations?
Yes.
Seriously?
Yes.
And they say that these are corporations?
Yes.
Yeah, Chinese corporations own some American assets.
Yes.
No, I mean, China has American assets.
China owns American assets, yes.
These are not Chinese corporations. This is Jinping. Jinping has American bonds.
Well, the structure is still a corporation. Like the actual business structure.
Yeah, but the difference between American corporations and Chinese corporations is that if you have, cities without any citizens inside of those Chinese corporations would just put citizens inside of those.
No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works.
Sure. Okay.
Because
I'll just say this.
That's just not how it works, man.
Yeah. Well, the government was giving out mortgages that didn't mean anything.
Yeah, that's also.
And we're talking about the U.S.
Oh my God! Like, why do I even have to entertain these complete misconceptions about how the economy of the People's Republic of China works? Because that's
so. Why don't you just tell me what is the truth?
Because I'm not your teacher. I'm not your professor, and I'm not going to grade your paper. I'm not giving you a lecture on the economy of the People's Republic of China. Like,
you would be so fucking useless about that. So why don't you just fuck up and just go away? Please.
Well, you could point them to
because
resources,
you being patronizing is just.
Yeah, I'm being patronizing. I understand that.
Shut the fuck up and go away.
He's busting your balls, man. See, that's something that we do in America. We bust balls.
It's not. No, this guy is just being beyond anything.
I think that you're so like misinformed about so many things that it would take me more time than I'm willing to spend for free because I'm a good capitalist.
So go away. So go away and don't waste.
Why would I go away? Why would I go away?
You waste your time because I'm wasting your time. I'm really sorry about that. Why don't you just go away?
Because I don't want to.
Fuck you.
Fuck you too. I'm glad we're on the same page.
Exactly.
Anyway, what else do we want to talk about, Dusty? Dusty!
Nobody likes you, Isaiah. Why don't you go away?
No. Still there, Dusty?
Huh? I got cut off there. What?
Oh, Isaiah asked if there's anything else you want to talk about.
I have to be very careful on the topics because Isaiah is very selective.
No, I'm not selective. I could talk about anything.
Yes, you are selective. Fair, being nice.
Okay. Here's one thing, because this is what we were talking about earlier. I just find it hilarious, but it's also sad. How people characterize the mail bomber, I guess you could call him, and how different narratives are told about that guy, I find very interesting. What do you think about the guy?
I barely even know anything about that. I've barely even heard anything about that person.
Apparently it was a dude living out of a van in Florida covered with MAGA stickers.
I think this is why it's both sad and alarming how seriously people take this person as a serious person.
Yeah.
Well, but if somebody sends bombs to government officials, is he not a serious person?
Well, yeah, of course he's a serious person, but I'm saying as in I would say a representative of a certain type of person as a whole.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Well, I think it's folly to assign broad intention to cohorts based on the actions of one individual in the first place.
Yeah.
It's also folly to create a weird and giant conspiracy theory to distance yourself because of those broad assertions as well.
What conspiracy theory are we talking about?
You haven't heard the false flag operation?
Oh, I heard that, but it most certainly wasn't a false flag because it happened and it was who we thought it was.
Yeah, but even after the facts came out, there are still people asserting that it was a false flag.
Yeah, Why? because Fox News is full of liars.
That's how the mainstream media operates.
The mainstream Fox News, I would say is.
I mean, like the major TV networks. That's what I mean.
CNN has a fiduciary responsibility to draw as much viewers as possible, and so do the other networks. But Fox News is a partisan network, and so is MSNBC.
Yeah.
So they're going to publish partisan articles. The problem with that is that Fox News and the Republican Party partisanry is kind of strange, to put it very charitably.
Everything on all sides about that related to that is strange.
I wouldn't say that the people who got bombed or the people who were investigating it, nor like publications such as the AP or NPR or the BBC were strange or biased in their reporting, because
I don't know anything about that. I'm not saying that about that.
Well, that's the mainstream media, though.
Some people conflate the news with talking head shows, though.
That's true.
That's part of the problem. And like Fox News, you could say that Fox News is the mainstream media. They're high profile because people know what they're saying and know who they're talking to. So people always rail either for them or against them.
Yeah.
Based on the propaganda that they spout. But everybody knows what their position is. Just like everybody knows what the position of MSNBC is. Everybody knows what the position of Jacobin magazine is going to be. Like, the propaganda magazines are fun, but they're useless in trying to discern what's actually happening. What I find disconcerting is the respectability of media sources that are on the right, specifically, that extol very conservative, in more than one way, ideas about conservative, right wing. Let's go with conspiratorial in this context. Conspiratorial ideas to propagandize events that are detrimental to their side. Like, because the person was who we thought it was, a dude living in his van who has, bumper stickers plastered all about it, saying that, this, that, and the other about George Soros and whatever, that he's a crazy person. It's hard to say that the whole rhetoric about it being a false flag operation is, unbiased.
Of course.
It's bullshit to say that it was a false flag because we already know what happened.
I have another question, because this is a topic that I hear coming up a bit. It's in the same vein. As far as the factors that drove him to do this, what do you think about the people being critical of presidential discourse and that leading up to that event in particular?
What do you mean?
Well, everybody that was targeted was basically someone Donald Trump talked shit to on Twitter.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
You still there, Dusty?
So everybody that Donald Trump talked to got targeted, right?
I think I was going to ask, do you think the president bears any partial responsibility for the act?
Legal responsibility or moral responsibility?
Moral.
I think that the president bears moral responsibility for most things that have to do directly with him. And in this case, I would say that it could be argued that he bears moral responsibility for the situation. So far as what I personally believe vis-a-vis the situation, I think that it doesn't really matter who the president is. I think the president is an avatar for the moral inclinations of the country at any given time.
That is a good argument.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an extension of those people.
So, like, my personal disposition on the President of the United States as it stands right now is that I look forward to his impending impeachment. And
You think he will get impeached?
I think that impeachment proceedings will start in the House if the House swings significantly to the Democratic aisle in 2 weeks.
How likely?
Yeah, we'll have to see.
The likelihood of him being removed from office is extremely low, because
Okay.
I don't like projections of the Senate show that it's likely going to remain Republican. And I think that's probably accurate. And I think that people like Heidi Heitkamp in North Dakota are going to lose. And I don't see the Democrats picking up almost any. I hope that the Democrats pick up Texas and that Ted Cruz loses his Senate seat, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, and doesn't the evidence against the president need to be pretty much an extreme smoking gun?
No.
You don't think so?
No, because if we're talking about proceedings for impeachment and what it takes to get, so there's impeachment and then there's removal from office, and the House can send articles of impeachment to the Senate for consideration without expectation that they're going to remove the person from office. And that's a political decision. It's not a legal decision. So
what about Nixon? Was there any procedure impending that they're going to remove him from office?
What happened with Nixon is that basically the Senate and House leaders went to Nixon and said, "Hey, you should probably resign before this goes any further," and he did.
Oh, okay, so we're saying in any case Trump would never agree.
Well, Trump would never resign. Like if
Trump was going to be,
if Trump was going to be removed from office, it would have to take an act of it would have to take the Senate convicting him essentially in impeachment proceedings, and the House could send impeachment proceedings to the Senate for consideration at any time. And I think that if the House swings as far to the Democratic Party as is possible, that impeachment proceedings will probably start as soon as Mueller releases his results, regardless of what the results say.
Yeah, I don't know how far updated they are past the Bob Woodward book, but from what I read, it just seems like Mueller at the time just kind of wants to catch Trump in a perjury trap.
Yeah.
I think that's a losing endeavor, but I don't have a dog in the fight.
No, that's just what I read from the book. That
I didn't read the book.
It's okay. I actually thought it was pretty good objectively, like as far as getting to the meat of some of the issues.
Yeah, me too.
But as far as like the Mueller investigation, as far as what Woodward wrote, it seems that Trump's lawyers were extremely transparent to a point up until they wanted to put him on the stand, because they don't think he's actually incapable of. They don't think he's capable of telling the truth.
Yeah.
On the stand.
Good
like
one.
even if they gave him a script, they don't think he's capable of telling the truth.
Well, they can still subpoena the president. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, I guess that's the case as well. But in order to do that, Okay, if they need to subpoena the president, what type of evidence would they need to present to get that subpoena?
They wouldn't need to present evidence. They would have to present a need for information that is sufficient that a federal judge would grant the subpoena request.
Okay, because I think the issue with Mueller is that a lot of his advisors were basically able to ask the same questions or answer the same questions that he would have been able to answer. The only things that are left unanswered would be him getting grilled about what was said with Comey, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Because anybody else that were in the same rooms with them during any of those discussions have already been talked to. And the reason they don't talk to Trump is because he's a blathering idiot that can't keep a story straight.
Yeah. So, like, I don't think.
Good
I think
night.
that after the new Congress.
Bye-bye.
What's that, Polish Christian Bale?
I was saying I was going away. Good night. You are fascinating. You are wonderful. You are
Goodbye, robot Christian Bale.
Good night.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Great to talk with
Goodbye,
you,
Zaya.
Christian Bale.
Miss you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
I think that regardless of what happens, the Democrats are going to take the House in 2 weeks. They're going to take the House. And after that, it's debatable on what can or cannot happen after the fact. And for me, for my politics, nothing's going to change. It's just going to be the same old shit. And I think that at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. It's interesting, and I think that for my life, it's better when there's a Democrat in the White House because it's easier to talk to chicks because they're not freaked out all the time. But on the whole, it's not that big of a deal for me. And in the long run, I think that if the Democrats pull a miracle and win the Senate and the House and then pack the courts, I think that would help. I think that would help American democracy in the long run. And I think that it would be beneficial for the United States if laws are passed to increase apportionment in the House of Representatives as a whole. But until it happens,
getting disconnected.
What's apportionment?
The amount of representatives per the amount of citizens.
Okay.
Oh yeah, the House is all fucked up.
Yeah.
So that's the problem I have. Like, I totally understand that the Senate's role is to combat the tyranny of the majority, but if the House isn't even proportional, then it's not doing the job it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and that whole tyranny of the majority thing is a political posturing thing. Really, the Senate is to ensure that those who are of the greatest, like the best stock, and this is what the founding fathers said, those who are of the best stock have the greatest sway in the administration of the country.
Like, what do you mean by the best stock? Are we talking about heritage or something?
Yes.
So what, like the House of Lords?
That's ostensibly what the Senate is based on. However, when Lawrence Lessig makes this point several times in Republic Laws. The first Senate had a farmer from Pennsylvania and a a son of a peer from Virginia. The first Senate had that. So, like, with a grain of salt, all things must be considered.
Well, do you think it's because one of the biggest problems is because there's a lock on the number of House seats?
I think that the Senate would be more effective if it had term limits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I could agree with that. As representatives are, I don't know. It seems like people get upset when a House representative has a small population to represent in, and then there might be a populace, like like for instance, a House rep from New York or something, New York City. They're representing a lot more people than a House rep from, bumfuck Idaho.
Yeah. Well, not only that, like right now, it's almost 1 million people per representative that they're representing. And the whole point of the House of Representatives is that the representative is supposed to be reflectant of their constituents. And with 1 million people, you can't do that.
No.
I mean, even that's the funny thing is that there's more people in the British House of Commons than there are in the U.S. House of Representatives. And we're supposed to be the cornerstone of democracy. And there is no real democracy on the federal level. On the state and local level, we can say that. But with the transition of individual power to the federal government over the past 50 years, it's hard to say that there is true democracy in the United States because it's become a de facto oligarchy. Like the district that I hail from in California, the California 6, has had a Matsui for the past a person of the Matsui family for the past 30, 40 years almost. Like when the previous holder of the seat died, his wife got elected to the seat because I don't know the name. And that shouldn't be a thing. And like,
well, is that a folly of?
It's a folly of the system. It's a folly of the system. It's a folly of the system because people are so disconnected from the people who represent them. Because in California, it's like one representative for every 900,000 constituents.
Mm-hmm.
How can you have effective representation if you're that disconnected from those who represent you? That's not democracy.
I totally agree. Like I always argue that usually when people talk about the House, it'd be much better if across the board each rep represented a very similar amount of people.
Well, the founding fathers actually, in the original document sending the proposals for the Bill of Rights to the separate states for ratification, Article the first of 12 articles was the Congressional Apportionment Act, essentially, which said that for every 30,000 people, there would be one representative until the number reached 100 representatives in the House. And then it would expand to 40,000 until the number reached 200 representatives in the House. And then it would be expanded to 60,000 or 50,000, depending on if we're looking at the House or Senate bills that were being sent around. And, had that passed when the Bill of Rights was sent for ratification, then there would be some 3,000 almost, or like at least 2,000 members of the House of Representatives, but it's been capped at 435 since 1929. And in 1929, the population of the United States was less than a third of what it is now.
Do you think there should be more representatives?
There should be at least 1,000 reps.
Okay.
There should be probably 3,000 reps. At least 3,000, because that would put one rep for every 100,000 people.
Yeah.
That would be more equitable than it is now, so far as representation. And representation is supposed to be equal.
Yeah, imagine the Electoral College, how that would change.
It would change tremendously. And like if the Electoral College was set to reflect the number of districts in each state that voted instead of being a winner takes all per state, then you wouldn't have these disagreements on the Electoral College. It's the winner take all system in the states themselves that caused this problem. And if the states got rid of winner takes all in each of them, then it would change the entire disposition. But it's a nuclear option. If one state got rid of it, then it's doubtful that other states would. Like, let's say California got rid of the winner takes all Electoral College, way that they allocate votes. Well, then Texas would have a distinct advantage to keep the winner takes all if it was being run by a Republican, because there would be more Republican votes free from California to go to the total Electoral College. But if we looked at it as a whole, then there would be more. It would be more in line with the popular vote. And whichever way the popular vote goes, so goes the presidency, if it was proportional electoral votes.
Yeah, that's part of why Trump was able to be elected, because he just had to win where it mattered. That's one thing that Bob Woodward talks about in that book, Fear.
Oh, I don't really want to rehash the 2016 election again because it's over. Thank God.
Yeah, that's fucking nuts, man.
Anyway, I'm going to call it a night.
Yeah, we've been on for a while. I think we could do that. We can go ahead and call it a night.
Sure.
All right. Next week, I have no idea what the fuck we're going to do, but I do know we're doing Ready Player One, the 17th. Have you started on that yet?
Do you think we can get the Venerable Hunter Motts on this show?
We do. He usually pops in on the belt chat, so he's here at least once a month.
Do you think we can get him on one of these?
That'd be cool.
If it depends on the topic. So if I can figure out a topic that he wants to talk about and he's very motivated by, then I can certainly get him on.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
But I'll see. I'll ask him, because usually I'll ask him, hey, is there something you want to talk about, and we could do a chat about. I haven't done that with him lately, so I'll probably do that this
Sounds
week
good.
and see if there's any particular topic that he wants to talk about for a while.
Cool.
All right, let's sign this off then.
All right, great. Well, thank you guys for showing up. I'm going to thank all the patrons. Thank you guys for contributing to the Mixed Mental Arts machine, first and foremost. All you guys, like, subscribe. I have been mulling around an idea. I think what I'm going to do is edit these things down, like the Mixed Mental Arts chats, into audio files, because I don't like listening, or at least trying to watch a super ass long video. And what I'm going to do with approval with everybody else is I'm going to edit these files down to a smaller size and probably get them on Patreon. So if you guys just want to listen in your car and not have to deal with fucking YouTube, I'll see if I can get these things in audio. And if you guys are interested, I'm just going to post them on Patreon so you can listen to these instead of watch them if you do not wish to watch them on YouTube, which I think is probably difficult if you're driving a car.
Yeah, great idea.
So, yeah, I'm gonna start doing that. And Ready Player One, that's gonna be something we'll talk about in a couple of weeks. And I'll try to keep you guys up to date with the next week's topic. I'm gonna talk to Hunter, see if he wants to talk about something. I'll post it on Facebook, and we'll try to get him on here. And it's glad to see the contentious Isaiah back.
Yeah.
Dropping knowledge bombs on everybody and pissing everyone off.
That's my job.
But we love you. There's been a couple people who's like, hey, where's the guy with the California flag? When is he coming back?
Yeah.
But next week, hit us up, same time. And
same bad time, same bad place. Bye.
And you guys got plugs?
I have a butt plug.
Oh, well, don't show us that.
Yeah, you don't need to do a Gavin McGinnis performance in front of us. That's quite all right.
Whoa.
All right, what about you? What do you got, Andrew?
Oh yeah, if people want to, they can check out my YouTube channel, Mindgasms, where I've talked to both Dusty and Isaiah on there and lots of other interesting people. And there's also my blog, mindgasms.theblogpress.com, where I publish blogs and also chapters of my novel that I've been writing. And yeah, it'd be cool if anyone wants to check that out.
All right, and I also have to chastise Andrew here because he did not ask James Sullivan why he thinks words are violence.
Oh yeah. I remember you telling me that, but I forgot
we
to ask.
We can talk about that next week.
Yeah.
Words are violence. I got an argument on Twitter with James about it, but I wanted to really see if he could flesh that out better, because Twitter is not the best place to argue with people.
Yeah, I forgot to ask him about
or
that.
Or is it the best place to argue with people?
It's both the best and the worst. It's the best place to start arguments with people, but it's not the best place to come to understandings about anything.
Yeah.
All right, well, Andrew has those Facebooky boo-haws, and you could check out his Mindgasms blog at, what is it?
Mindgasms.theblogpress.com.
Yes, and check out his YouTube channel. I know he does stuff weekly.
Yep.
At least weekly, and he's talked to a bunch of interesting people. And he's a pretty mellow and chill dude.
Yeah. And I like I like Isaiah too, even when we disagree.
I think Isaiah forces us to be on our A game.
Yeah.
And that is something that everybody needs once in a while, because you can't get better without being challenged.
Of course.
But yes, thank you guys for being here. Join us next week. Adios.
Adios, praise Odin.